Hello and welcome to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Today we've got a few things to discuss, including a couple signings, a few more injury updates, a very small trade, and a couple of trade rumors with the Edmonton Oilers and the Los Angeles Kings. We'll go to all of that coming up right now. Hello and welcome to another video here. I'll start things off today by discussing a few signings that have happened recently. I'll start off over in Colorado, as the Avalanche have dealt with a lot of injuries this year, especially to their forward group, losing guys like Landeskog and Helm and Chushkin for a majority of the season due to injuries. So they have gone out and got some help via free agency, as they signed Alex Galchenyuk to a 1-year, $750,000 deal. Now, Galchenyuk was not able to get a contract earlier in the season. He did go to training camp on PTO in the offseason, but was not able to get a contract and has been a free agent up until this point. He's a good bottom six forward, definitely not the player he used to be. He was a good top six forward for the Montreal Canadiens for a few years, but that was like 4 or 5 years ago now. At this point, he's now more of a bottom six forward, and he's had trouble getting an NHL contract. But for now, with the banged up core of the Avalanche and them not wanting to rush too many of their younger guys into bigger roles as of right now, getting Galchenyuk is a pretty smart move. Galchenyuk can probably help a little bit on the PK and can produce reasonably well in a bottom six role. He could probably play consistent third line minutes until a guy like Nichushkin or Landeskog can be back. But he did have a decent season last year, putting up 21 points in 60 games, which was the most he had since the 18-19 season, which was the first year he was out of Montreal. So his decline really started after that. He did have a decent season last year, but definitely not enough to earn himself another contract before the season started. So hopefully Galchenyuk can make the best of this opportunity. I do think that he could still be a good either fourth line forward or depth forward, even when guys like Landeskog, Nichushkin, and Helm get back. But for the time being, the Avalanche do need more forward depth to help their younger guys continue to develop in the AHL. So signing Galchenyuk is a very smart move, and I think it'll be really good for both the Avalanche and Galchenyuk with this signing. And then over in the Columbus Blue Jackets, they have continued to sign some of their recent draft selections, as they signed second-round pick from this past year's draft, the 2022 draft, Luca Del Belbalaz, to a 3-year entry-level contract with an AAV of $950,000. Now, he was a player who could have probably gone in the top round of this past year's draft. He did slide a little bit to early second-round picks, so the Jackets were really good to snatch him up early in the second round. He had a pretty good season last year in juniors, putting up 76 points in 68 games, but he's done an okay job this year as well, putting up 26 points in 21 games. So he's done pretty well. He looks to be possibly a third, maybe second-line center of the future. So it's good that the Blue Jackets were able to get him signed. I think that in time, Blues can be a pretty good, decent bottom six forward for the Blue Jackets, maybe middle six forward. But getting him locked up, pretty good. He's probably going to have to spend this year in the juniors, maybe next year, and then probably another year of development before he challenges for a roster spot. But I do think that in time, Blues should be able to compete for a roster spot with the Blue Jackets and should be able to do quite fine as a middle six forward with Columbus. Now, those are the only two signings I want to talk about today. Next, we'll go over to some injury updates. First, over in Boston, as the Boston Bruins have finally become healthy. They were able to activate Derek Forbort off of long-term injury reserve, and he played in the Bruins' most recent game, and that means that all of the Bruins players are now healthy. We know they started with guys like McAvoy and Marchand and Grzelcyk out, and then they swapped some players, and then some guys got healthy, and then a couple of guys went on injury reserve. Now everyone is off of injury reserve for the Boston Bruins. This is the first time in all season they've had now a healthy D-core. They had enough healthy defensemen right now that they have good third pair defensemen like Anton Strawman and Mike Riley in the minors now. So definitely good news for the Boston Bruins to become completely healthy now, just after U.S. Thanksgiving. So pretty good. Timeline for Marchand was just after Thanksgiving, and McAvoy was early December. So those two really were ahead of schedule. Grzelcyk's done well to recover. I know Carlo and Forbort were also on injury reserve. Krejci as well for some time. as well as Swayman. So all of those guys are healthy, and given the fact that Boston is one of the league leaders in points right now, and now they're fully healthy, they're going to be a scary team to watch over the coming weeks and months leading up to the playoffs, as they look to be a powerhouse in the Eastern Conference. But getting a fully healthy lineup back is good. Forbort, not the best of the Bruins defensemen, but a pretty decent one. He can put up some points, and is a good third pair defenseman, a little bit more on the physical side. But after a bad year last year, he had played really well this year. So getting him back in the fold is really great news for the Bruins, and hopefully with a now fully healthy roster, the Bruins can continue to carry the momentum they've had at the beginning of the season. Over in Toronto, there's some good news as they now have a healthy goaltending core. The Maple Leafs activated Ilya Samsonov off of injury reserve, and he played in his first game back yesterday against the San Jose Sharks. And the Maple Leafs are now fully healthy on the goaltending. They do have still one AHL player currently on season opening injury reserve in Joseph Woll, but besides that, they now have their tandem Samsonov and Murray back. I know that they have not been able to run with that tandem so far. They brought both of those players in the offseason to become their new tandem in net. And Murray played the first game and then got injured. And then while Murray was injured, Samsonov got injured. So this tandem hasn't really been healthy for the entire season. But now, with Samsonov and Murray healthy, they can run and see how these two do. Murray's played quite well. Like I said, Murray can play well if he can stay healthy. And since coming back from injury, he's played quite well. Before he was injured, Samsonov was playing really well. So I still think this Maple Leafs tandem is pretty good. The Maple Leafs team was able to keep on winning games while all these goalies were able to get back to healthy. And now they have Samsonov and Murray as their tandem. And that should give them a huge boost to continue to be a really good team. They're one of the top 5 teams in the NHL right now. And with Samsonov now being activated, hopefully the tandem can take off and be one of the better tandems in the NHL. Over in Philadelphia, they had both good and bad news on injury front. Konechny, who was injured last weekend and missed a couple games due to being injured, has been placed on injury reserve and will now join a huge group of Philadelphia forwards who are on injury reserve, joining guys like James Van Riemsdyk, Wade Allison, and Sean Couturier. But they were able to activate Scott Laughton. Now, for Konechny, he's been one of the better forwards in Philadelphia this year. He's done a really good job putting up goals and points, and in the absence of guys like Couturier and Allison and Atkinson and some of these other guys who have missed time due to injury, Konechny has really stepped up and been a really good top 6 forward for the Philadelphia Flyers. A very physical forward and guy who's been able to really help this young Flyers team win some games. So losing Konechny is going to be really, really hard for the Philadelphia Flyers. It's just another offensive body off of their lineup, and a good offensive body at that. But getting Laughton back is pretty good as well. Laughton's had a pretty nice start to the season before going down with an injury. He's been one of the leaders of this young team, one of the older players on this team. He's put up some points, which is pretty good, and he's a good middle 6 forward. So I don't think that he's going to be able to replace Konechny's production with Konechny out, but he's going to give them another healthy forward body, and he's going to help them produce at least some. I think Laughton can still do pretty well in a middle 6 role, either at center or left wing on like the second or third line. But with Konechny out and guys like JVR and Couturier also out, Laughton's going to be called upon to put up some points and try and help this Flyers team win, as the Flyers have not done too well as of late. So hopefully Laughton can come in and help produce points with Konechny not in the lineup for now, and hopefully help this young Flyers team win some games. Over in Edmonton, they've had a few injury updates. They had to place forwards Kyler Yamamoto and Ryan McLeod on injury reserve. Now, Yamamoto had missed a lot of games due to an injury. He just had not been placed on IR yet, and now he has. So he should be able to come back whenever he's ready, and he's still a really good top 6 forward for the Oilers. He's been in and out of the lineup due to injuries this year, so I do hope that Yamamoto can continue to improve and then get back, because the Oilers really do miss his production. Him and Kane being out for a big part of the season has led to the Oilers' offense drying up a little bit, so hopefully Yamamoto can come back in a week or two, hopefully, and continue to play some good games. McLeod had been in all of the Oilers games up until their most recent one, and he had done quite well. So being placed in IR is not ideal for the Edmonton Oilers. McLeod has been doing really well as a third-line center behind guys like RNH, McDavid, and Draisaitl on the forward group. So losing their third-line center is pretty bad. McLeod's been rounding himself out to be a very nice middle six forward, playing majority on the third line. So with all of the guys who they've already lost, Yamamoto being out for a good chunk of the season due to injuries, Kane being out for a huge portion of the season due to injury, losing McLeod as well is pretty bad, as that Oilers forward group is really banged up right now, and hopefully they can overcome these few injuries. But they were able to activate Tyler Benson off of a long-term injury reserve. Now, Benson is a good AHL player, and he has been a top prospect for a couple of years, but has slowly lost his value. He has not done too well in the NHL level up to this point. He's done an okay job in the AHL, but he hasn't been able to not only get opportunities, but capitalize on those opportunities he has gotten at the NHL level. So with guys like McLeod and Kane and Yamamoto injured right now, maybe Benson can come in, play a bomb six role, and try to prove that he can be an NHL regular forward. So good for Benson to get back. Hopefully he can stick in the NHL. It'd be really great for him if he could. But bad news with Yamamoto and McLeod going out due to injuries. And hopefully those two can get back, as this Oilers group could really use two young players like those two. Over in Winnipeg, we know that they've dealt with a few injuries this year. Stanley's still out due to an injury, and Nikolai Ehlers has been out for the entire season due to an injury. But the Jets were able to activate Morgan Barron off of injury reserve and get him back in the lineup. Now, Barron is not the best of forwards in the Winnipeg organization. He's a good bottom six forward. He was acquired last trade deadline in the Andrew Kopp deal, but he's not one to put up too many points. He's a good bottom six forward. He can play center or wing if he needs to, but he's not going to help with the loss of production of guys like Appleton or Ehlers. But getting another healthy body is pretty good for the Winnipeg Jets. They've been playing banged up since the start of the season, and Barron is a consistent player in the bottom six. So getting Barron back is huge, and hopefully the Jets can get some more offense out of him. I do think he can still be a pretty good offensive bottom six forward. He has not been that to this point with the Jets so far, but if he can play in a few more games, get some more maybe third line reps, I think he could still be a pretty good bottom six forward for the Jets. So getting him back is huge. And over in Vegas, the Vegas Golden Knights had to place Brett Howden on injury reserve due to an injury, and he will miss the foreseeable future due to that. Howden's a good third, fourth line center for the Golden Knights. He's been playing bottom 6 minutes consistently for this season and done really well. He has put up a decent amount of points, but not too substantial. And I think that losing their third line center is going to be bad. They have the guys to overcome an injury like this. Like, they have Paul Cotter, and they have Michael Amadio, and they have Jake Leschyshyn. So they do have a couple of guys who could step into a third line center role with Howden being out. But given the fact Howden's a key bottom six piece of this Golden Knights team, he will be sorely missed by the Golden Knights. And hopefully Howden can get back soon. I don't expect him to be out too long. Maybe a week, week and a half, hopefully. So once Howden gets back, he can probably step back into that third line role. But for the foreseeable future, Howden is out. The Knights are going to have to rework their bottom six to make up for that loss. So that's all the injury news I want to talk about today. Before I get into the trade rumors, I do have one small trade to discuss, as the Vegas Golden Knights sent depth defenseman Zachary Hayes to the Carolina Hurricanes in exchange for future considerations. Now, for the Knights, this does not do too much. Hayes was a good depth forward. He was probably 9th or 10th on their depth charts. If they ran into enough injuries, he probably would have been called up. But he was probably going to get passed in the next year or two by good young players like Lucas Cormier or Caden Korczak. So losing him is not going to be too much of a problem for the Golden Knights with guys like those coming up in their system. But the underlying factor for the Golden Knights is that they had the max 50 contracts that a team can carry by the organization. So moving him gives them an extra contract slot, which means if they wanted to go sign someone or acquire someone via a trade, they can now do that. So I think it's just a matter of them moving out one of their contracts to maybe open up a spot if they were to try and acquire someone. I mean, they are a good team. They're playing really well. So if they were to go and acquire a key piece at the deadline, they would have needed one of those contract slots to make it happen. So moving Hayes is a probably not too big of a deal for them. It's a small move, but it's a necessary move for the Golden Knights to maybe make a run at someone before the trade deadline. As for the Carolina Hurricanes, we know that they moved Ethan Bear a couple of weeks ago to the Vancouver Canucks after he wasn't getting much time. So that did thin out their depth a little bit. They do still have guys like Chatfield and Coughlin at the NHL level, so they have a good group of 7 guys. But adding Zach Hayes to the group is going to help their team a lot. Hayes is a good AHL defenseman who can come up into the NHL. He had a decent amount of points last year, putting up 10 in 54 games, and did get into 2 games of NHL action. He's only had an assist in 14 AHL games so far this year, so he hasn't been too much of a productive defenseman this year with the Vegas' AHL affiliate. But hopefully in Carolina, he's going into a team who probably has a little bit more weaker AHL depth than the Golden Knights do. The Canes do have a guy like Max Lajoie and William Lagesson in the AHL, but besides that, they really don't have much depth. So getting a guy like Zach Hayes who can then come up to the lineup if there are a few injuries for the Canes is probably a good option for the Canes. So basically, all this does is open up into the contract slot for the Golden Knights if they want to go out and acquire a forward or a defenseman, someone before the trade deadline. And for the Hurricanes, it's just a little bit of added depth on the defensive end. So not too big of a trade, but a trade nonetheless. And hopefully we get some more trades before A, the December roster freeze, and B, the March 3rd trade deadline. So that's the trade I wanted to discuss. Now we go over to the trade rumors. I'm starting off with the Edmonton Oilers. There have been a few reports as of late that the Edmonton Oilers are looking for a forward to be added to their lineup. Maybe a guy who has a little bit more physical attributes to their lineup. Now, they lost Evander Kane a couple weeks ago due to a wrist injury, and he's been out. He's probably going to be out until right around the trade deadline. So losing a guy with the physical attributes of Kane, someone who's not afraid to drop the gloves or be a very physical forward, has been pretty hard for the Edmonton Oilers. Kane is also a pretty good point getter for the Edmonton Oilers, so losing a guy like Kane is hard. I know we already talked about losing Kane. Yamamoto McLeod is going to be hard for the Oilers right now, so acquiring a forward who can help with their offensive group, I don't think would be half bad of a move. I think that if the Oilers could go out, find someone who's probably not too expensive and not on too long-term a contract, because I don't think Kane's going to be out for the entire season. I think he should be able to come back late February, early March, somewhere around there. And when he comes back, they're going to have cap problems again unless someone else is on injury reserve. So they're going to need to have someone who's probably cheap and could probably be a good fourth-line forward, maybe be moved to the minors when Kane gets back. But I'd probably be looking at maybe a rental of someone who's probably making under $1.5 million right now. Probably not too many players fit that mold, but if they can find a good bomb six forward from like maybe a selling team, like maybe Anaheim Ducks or San Jose Sharks or Columbus Blue Jackets, just someone who is in a bomb dwelling team right now and could try and get an asset back for like a bomb six forward, I think the Edmonton Oilers could do that. I have to be a guy who could play on like the third line and play a bit more physical style of hockey. Could put up some points too. But given the fact that the Oilers have become a little bit easier to play against over the past few weeks, and that they're not the dominant team that we saw last year in the regular season and in the playoffs as well, it just makes sense that the Oilers should probably try and acquire a forward with some physicalness to his game. Some names that maybe come to mind would be like maybe a Matt Nieto or Nick Bonino in San Jose. Maybe a guy like a Derek Grant in Anaheim could be another one. Maybe if Ottawa decides to be sellers, maybe like an Austin Watson. Someone to that effect who can put up some points but is more of a physical forward. So definitely keep an eye out for the Edmonton Oilers to maybe look for a forward it's quite possible they could add one in the very near future, especially if they continue to lose players to injury reserve and lose games to other teams. So with the Oilers in the midst of a playoff race right now, trying to keep a playoff spot, they need some more physicalness in their lineup. So hopefully they can get a good bomb six forward who can help with that category. And lastly, here with the LA Kings and their murky goaltending situation. Now, the LA Kings have done pretty well to start the season. They're third in the Pacific Division and are ahead of teams like the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames, and the Vancouver Canucks. But they have played a lot more games than those teams, so there is a chance that they could fall a little bit farther in the playoff race. But they have a really bad goaltending situation right now. If you look at their team, their offense is producing heavily on all cylinders. The addition of Fiala, the emergence of Velarde, has absolutely improved this offense. And their offense is one of the deadliest in the league. I would say the Kings probably have a top 5 offense in the NHL right now. And they're doing pretty well. Even their defense is doing quite well. They have a really, really good right side on the defense. A little bit of a weaker left side. And I think they could try to look for it on a trade to improve this left side of their D-core, which I could think help their defensive situation, but I don't think it's all on the defensemen right now. Their goaltending tandem is not doing too well right now. You have Cal Peterson, Jonathan Quick in net, and neither goalie has done quite well this year. And you can definitely see that from their most recent game when they lost 9-8 to the Seattle Kraken. And both Peterson and Quick did not do too well in that game. And both goalies have not done overly well this year. We've seen a few games this year where the Kings have lost high-scoring affairs and they cannot get a save. Now, Cal Peterson is the really interesting one here. A few years ago in the shortened season, Peterson emerged quite well as like a potential starting goaltender of the future for the LA Kings. Up a .911 save percentage and 2.86 goals against average in 35 games in that shortened season. And a few weeks before the 21-22 season got underway, the LA Kings thought he was a good goaltender. He could be their future starter. So he signed him to a 3-year, $5 million extension that kicked in this season. But last year, he did not have a really good season, putting up a .895 save percentage and a 2.86 goals against average in 37 games. And he fell out of favor. Quick had a resurgence. He absolutely killed last year. He was playing like the Jonathan Quick who helped the LA Kings win 2 cups in 3 years. So definitely Quick won the starting job. He was the starting goalie in all of their games in the playoffs last year. So Peterson really fell off, and he's fallen off a ton more this year, having an .868 save percentage and a 3.75 goals against average in 10 games. Peterson has not looked like the starting goalie who was playing phenomenally in the shortened season. So that has led to the LA Kings waiving Cal Peterson. Now, as of the recording of this video, he has not completed waivers yet. That will happen in a few hours from now. So given the fact that Peterson could be claimed, I would be very shocked if a team would be willing to claim a goaltender who still has 2.5 years left at $5 million. It will be quite surprising, and a team who is in desperate need of a goaltender who could maybe turn around. But it's quite possible that Cal Peterson ends up clearing waivers. So if that happens, where do the Kings go from here? They have a goaltender who's not doing too well in Cal Peterson, who's signed for the next 2.5 years at $5 million. And then they have Jonathan Quick, who did phenomenally last year. He played outstanding hockey and really kept the Kings in the first round series against the Oilers, but has not done as well this year, and that's to be expected. Quick's starting to get up there in age, and he's probably only got a few more years left of really good hockey. So given that fact, so it's pretty reasonable to think that Quick's is going to start declining, and he probably won't be the starter for the LA Kings. Now, could he return? Yes, he's a unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. He could return maybe on like a shorter term deal with a little bit less money, but the Kings really need to figure out some sort of a goaltending situation. Peterson's not playing well, Quick's regressing a bit now, and the goaltending is costing them games. So I would not be surprised if the Peterson clears waivers. Maybe the Kings try and find a new home for him. It will be really difficult to move Peterson given the fact that he's still got 2.5 years left at $5 million. But it may be the necessary move. Quick's still a good player. He can probably be a 1B in a tandem. But given the fact that I don't think the Kings are now comfortable with giving Peterson the crease, and Quick's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, they need to make a move. I think they could even go after a goaltender who's in the final year of his contract before the trade line. James Reimer and Laurent Brossoit come to mind. Reimer's a good goaltender. He's done well with the Sharks last year and this year. He's on injury reserve right now, but the Sharks have already been listening to multiple teams on a lot of players. So trading Reimer might be a good move for the San Jose Sharks. For the Golden Knights, they have a lot of goaltenders. They have Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson in the NHL right now. Laurent Brossoit is not a cheap backup, but he's a good backup and could probably be a decent upgrade on Cal Peterson the way he's playing right now. So maybe they go after a goaltender. Like I said, Reimer, Brossoit, maybe even Jonas Korpisalo in Columbus. If the Jackets aren't doing too well, maybe they trade him. But definitely, I think the Kings could end up acquiring a goalie before the trade deadline. And I think that this situation is going to be interesting to watch, as I would like to see first if Peterson does clear waivers, and second, how the LA Kings handle this, as will they send him to the minors, or will they just keep him on the roster for now? Definitely want to see. I definitely want to know what you think. Do you think Peterson's time in LA is done? Are the Kings going to go in another direction? Who is a goaltender who you think the Kings could go after if they were to try and acquire a goaltender before the trade line? Definitely want to know what you think down in the comments. So that's all I'm going to talk about today. Remember to like this video and subscribe. I also do a blog, which I will leave a link to in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for next week's video. See you guys soon.